Hello and welcome to Gut Instinct, a special project from Mail Plus telling you all you need to know about your gut. I'm Jess King and I'm joined in studio by nutritionist Eve Kalinick and Professor Simon Gaisford from UCL. Today we're talking about all things you can do to optimise your health. Eve, in recent years there's been a lot of information out there about your gut, about good gut health. What is your gut and why should we care?
Yeah, so gut health has had a bit of a trendy renaissance in the last few years, but actually it was Hippocrates, who's the father of medicine, that millennia ago famously quoted as saying, all disease begins in the gut. And I think a lot of people get confused around what the gut is. They sort of think it's sort of around this area in their tummy, but actually it's a very long tube that starts at the point of entry to the point of exit. So anything along that is essentially deemed our gut. But where I guess more the interest and the research is focused at the moment is on the gut microbiota, which collectively refers to all the trillions of microbes that live in our gut. They mostly live in our large intestine, but they're scattered all the way through. And so much so, which is kind of incomprehensible to get your head around when you think about all of those microbes in your gut. But there's so much of them that actually it's being considered an organ in its own right due to the far-reaching influence that our gut microbiota has, not just on our digestion, but more broadly speaking, on our health and well-being, insofar as our gut can influence things like our immune system. So around 70 to 80% of our immune system is located in our gut, and it fundamentally relies on the health of all of those microbes, but even linked to things like cognitive health, mood, and managing inflammation in the body.
So it really is a key part of our bodies. And is it just what we eat and drink, what we put in our bodies that can affect it?
I mean, there are so many variables that can affect our gut health, but I guess you've got to sort of really think about food first and how you're feeding those trillions of microbes in your gut. And one of the key things to be focused around on a very basic level is getting enough dietary fibre in our diet. And that's something we find in all plant-based carbohydrates. So that would be vegetables, fruit, whole grains, nuts and seeds. And essentially we want to kind of get a diverse amount, a varied amount across all of those different types of fibre, because as we currently understand, to build a stronger, healthier microbiome, what we need to do is feed all of those microbes with different types of fibre. So it's more about thinking about eating the rainbow, really, is a good thing to have in mind, because when you eat the rainbow, you do get a variety of those fibre sources, but you also take in things called polyphenols, and those are special plant chemicals that give the plants their colour, and those also have a positive effect on our microbiome. The other things that we could think about adding into our diet more mindfully would be things like fermented foods. So these are things that, again, I think a lot of people now are seeing a lot more of them in the supermarket. I grew up in a Polish household, so we had sauerkraut was sort of on tap. But even on a more basic level, things like traditional cheeses, and those can give you a source of those bacteria that are believed to sort of be beneficial for our gut. So maybe adding in some live yogurts, cheeses, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, and kombucha. And again, these things have become a lot more widely available for people now.
They have become a lot more trendy. And Simon, tell us about the science behind it. What's happening when we're eating and drinking inside our bodies?
So when you eat food, you're basically taking in fats, proteins and carbohydrate. So your body is really good at absorbing the proteins. It breaks it down to amino acids and absorbs. Fats get absorbed very quickly, and simple sugars get absorbed as well, which is why you often get a spike in blood sugar straight after eating. But anything else, complex carbohydrates and fibre, as Eve said, you can't digest and absorb yourself. So that will transit through your gut, and it's going to arrive at the colon. And the colon is full of bacteria. So the way to think about the carbohydrate is you can't digest it, but the bacteria have special molecules that can break it down, and they break carbohydrate down into sugar. I think it's one of those things that people don't necessarily recognise, that carbohydrate is just sugar molecules stuck together. So the bacteria break the carbohydrate down into simple sugars, and they use that sugar to grow. And like all living things, bacteria produce waste compounds. So different species of bacteria will produce different waste compounds. So what you give to your gut is a mixture of fibre. You've got thousands of different species, as Eve said, and so they will all use that carbohydrate, and they will produce a myriad of different compounds as waste products. But what's waste to a bacterium probably isn't waste to you. And so by eating carbohydrates, we give the bacteria this food stuff. They produce millions of different compounds that we ourselves can take in. So one way of thinking about it is when you eat food, you're not really eating for yourself, you're eating for your bacteria. Because taking in a simple food stuff, they're turning it into this whole range of different compounds. And I suppose one of the key things to think about with gut health is some of those bacteria produce compounds which are useful, some produce compounds which might be harmful or toxic. So I like to think of a mixture of bacteria, some good, some bad, and it's that balance which is key.